6th grade. For your next project, you will be creating hand puppets. The quote below is by Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets. "My hope still is to leave the world a bit better than when I got here." We're going to take a second and watch a little Muppet video.
Phenomena. Phenomena. Phenomena.
Hello? Okay, just a second. It's for you. The question is, what is a phenomena?
The question is, who cares?
Most of you guys probably are familiar with the Muppets, and here's a picture of a whole bunch of different Muppet characters. So I'm going to ask that this gets paused right here and some students can read the different bulleted points on the left. All right, moving on. So Jim Henson was also a part of Sesame Street. So if you weren't familiar with the Muppets, or maybe you're familiar with both Sesame Street and the Muppets, both, as you can see, are using puppets, which is, like I said, what you guys are going to be creating for this project. And we'll talk specifically about what type of puppets you are going to make. I think this is a cool picture here to see how the actors have to stand and work together to really bring those Sesame Street characters to life that we all know and love. All right, let's talk about some vocabulary. I'm going to ask that the video is paused so students can take a second and read the different vocabulary words listed here. So you will each be making a puppet. You will also be bringing the puppet to life by moving it and giving different movements and actions to that puppet and manipulating the puppet in the way that it moves. You guys will be coming up with a way in which you will animate the puppet through a little puppet play. So we're going to read about the background on puppets. So pause the video here and ask different students to read, please. So if you think about that last bulleted point, today's puppets are being used to teach. I know that there's the lady that comes from St. Vincent, and she brings that penguin. I've never really sat in on one of those, but I know that she definitely uses that penguin to teach you guys about different things. So, you know, that's a way in which you all have experienced a puppet being used to teach you things right here in school. And so that's kind of what you guys are going to be doing too. You're going to be taking that puppet and using it in a way, in a performance, to teach your audience about something. All right, there are various types of puppets. They can be categorized by the way that they are manipulated rather than the fabric with which they are made. So a sock puppet with a hinged mouth, for example, is considered a hand puppet with a movable mouth. So again, it's more about the way that they are manipulated. We you know, often call puppets by what they're made from, like a sock puppet, for example, but you can see below there are 5 categories that really each type of puppet falls into. So a rod puppet, shadow puppet, hand puppet, marionette, and full body puppets. There are various varieties of and combinations of different types of puppets: hand and rod puppets, non-puppet or object puppets. Kind of think about like a paper bag really could be used as a puppet, or like a sock puppet. Finger puppets and puppets for the feet. Probably not ones that you see quite as much as ones that are put on your hands. All right, so let's take a look at those different types of puppets. Here are 4 pictures of different rod puppets, and you can see not only is there a rod being used to hold up the main portion of their body for the most part. There's also a rod attached to the limbs, so you can move the hands around, you know, as you're bringing them to life. They are one of the oldest and simplest puppets. The rod puppet is manipulated by 1 or more rods, and traditionally the puppeteer manipulates the puppet from the stage. I know I've seen some of these types of puppets on America's Got Talent, so they're still quite popular, even though they're one of the oldest and simplest types. Next up is a shadow puppet. So these are flat puppets, whereas rod puppets that we just looked at are 3-dimensional. Shadow puppets are 2-dimensional figures controlled by a wire or a rod against a screen. Projecting light from behind the puppet creates a shadow onto a white cloth screen stretched and stapled to a wooden frame. But really any background, you know, you could create these different shadows on. And the puppeteer moves the puppet to bring it to life. Next up are marionettes. Marionettes are controlled and manipulated with strings. So whereas the first one we looked at rods, marionettes are controlled by strings. They're built with jointed parts so that, you know, even like the elbows and different things can move. And the marionette moves much like a human or an animal. So these ones might be a little bit more complex, but the movements, you know, you have greater range of movements. The puppet's moving parts are connected by strings to control a control rod or a paddle. The puppeteer stands above the puppet stage for a marionette, whereas other ones that we've looked at so far, the person's going to either stand behind or below the puppet. Next up are some full body puppets. I'm sure you guys recognize most of these. Maybe not Alf. This guy over here. That was a show on in the 80s. And these are all full body puppets. A puppet worn over the puppeteer's head and body, much like a costume. Most full body puppets are animated by one puppeteer inside the puppet. Extremely large full body puppets may be controlled by more than one puppeteer or even a remote control. So like an animatronic kind of puppet, kind of like at the zoo, if you guys have ever been in to see that dinosaur exhibit there. All right, we have movable mouth puppets. Variation of the hand puppet is constructed with a hinged jaw and movable mouth. The puppet's head is manipulated by the puppeteer's 4 fingers, while the thumb is used to control the lower jaw. And next up are hand puppets. They are also called glove puppets. They fit over the puppeteer's hand, much like a mitten or a glove. The puppeteer manipulates the puppet by placing the second and third fingers along with the thumb as the puppet's hands, and the entire puppet is moved to signify talking, right? So these ones don't have a hinged mouth. I think Bert does in this picture, but the other ones, right, they don't have a hinged mouth, but they can still be, you can simulate talking by just kind of moving the whole body. All right, so for this project, you guys will recognize and identify the 5 basic puppet types, and we just looked at pictures of those right now, right? Rod puppets, shadow puppets, marionettes, full body, movable mouth, and hand puppets. And, oh, my stars got messed up a little bit. These were supposed to be next to hand puppets because that is what you guys will be creating. You will be making and designing your very own unique hand puppets. But there are some other portions to this project that I want to let you know about. You guys will also, this is the second bulleted point here, you'll be a part of a group that will create an original script that has a positive, meaningful message that is important to you. So I'm going to be grouping you guys by your tables in art, and you will be writing this script in ER with your ELA teachers and whomever you're with for ER. So for very soon, you guys will be starting this. So I want you to start thinking about some different ideas that you could come up with that your script might be about. So here are some possible subject ideas: bullying, pollution, making good choices, how to be a good friend, right? So I'm sure you guys can come up with some other ideas. You're going to spend some time brainstorming those other ideas in just a little bit here. So you have to work together with your group. You guys all have to be deciding together what it is, what topic you guys are going to be basing your original script on. And the message, like I said, has to be meaningful to you, right? And you want to also be making the outcome, the message that you're coming out with has to be positive. You guys are going to be using your imagination to create a 3D design and make an original 3D hand puppet. So you might be inspired by a Muppet, right? You might be inspired by something on Sesame Street, but you're going to make your very own original puppet. And once you guys make the puppet here in art, you're going to write the script in ER. You are then going to, once the puppets are finished, the scripts are finished in art class, you will work with your group to produce the puppet show. Here, we'll be recording it on an iPad and then viewing them all, okay? So we're going to not only be doing that, but you're going to work on animating your puppet character and experiment with even puppet voices. So don't feel like you just have to talk normal. You can do kind of funny voices to really get into the character.